Good day and welcome to today's session regarding the redesign of the ECL and ECB-VAVS series controllers. Please note that today's session is being recorded and will be posted to the Smart Source hereafter. Also note that all attendees have been muted on entry, and should you have any questions throughout the presentation, please use the chat panel in the main Webex window, and those questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'd like to start off with introductions. There's myself, Ryan Sam, the Director of Customer Experience, and today I'm joined by our Product Manager responsible for the VAV product offering, Mr. Kevin Ritter. Kevin, say hello.
Hi everyone, Kevin Ritter here. Matthew Hull will not be attending this session or might join us a bit later. I am the Product Manager for the new VAV and a couple other topics we'll be discussing later. We'll go through that with you today, and I'm excited to be here.
All right, fantastic, Kevin. So let's go ahead and take a look at the agenda for today's presentation. So first and foremost, we'd like to address the question on everyone's mind, and that's revolving around availability of the existing ECL and ECB series controllers. But more importantly, we'd like to focus on the features and benefits of the new redesigned footprint enclosure. I'd like to then walk you through the brand new configuration assistant tool for EC-gfxProgram that Kevin will demo for us. And lastly, we'll talk about some of the pricing details for the new form factor VAV controller. We'll also be shifting gears and talking about other product retirements that we have planned, and so we'll go through some of those important dates. We'll talk about some of the key and fantastic documentation that the team has put together for a guide to indicate replacement products, as well as talk about the pricing changes for those products being retired. Finally, we'll wrap up by briefly touching on the potential need to engage in project or order prioritization based on limited quantities. And so with that said, I'd like to transfer the presentation over to Kevin to walk us through the principal changes here.
Hi everyone. So we're going to start off with the redesigned VAV controller. Basically what you see here is the difference in the form factors when comparing the current VAV to what its replacement product will look like. We have gone through this change and basically done some improvements to the overall form factor of the VAV. You'll notice a lot of similarity to that of the ECY-VAV, the Eclipse Series VAV controller. We've taken advantage to benefit from the robust hardware platform that this IP-based VAV controller included since its first launch, and we've integrated a lot of those great features into this new product. So basically, there are certain key features, key improvements that we've applied to this new VAV controller. Here you see an example of the ECB-VAV, but the same construction is applied throughout the series of models that will be released this June. So the first and noteworthy improvement is the actuator now is a 45-inch pound actuator shared with the ECY-VAV.
Yeah, Kevin, I think that's an absolute fantastic addition to the controller, because now this allows our system integrators to go after those projects where you have heavier damper boxes, where traditionally we'd use external actuators. Now we can actually do that with the VAV directly. So that's a great competitive advantage.
Great point. And to move on basically to the overall construction, we now, with sharing the same design as the same form factor as the ECY-VAV, we have a much more compact and lighter design. This mainly will be noticed with its footprint in a VAV box. It will be it's about 10% shorter overall and about 13% lighter. But quite an improvement in that regard.
Absolutely, Kevin. I mean, this is the true definition of voice of the customer. I mean, we've heard it for years from you guys in the field, running into tighter or confined VAV box enclosure types, and so this makes us much more competitive in being able to fit into those tighter spaces.
Yep. And actually, one important note to make is the fact that now it's a much simpler design to either install in a counterclockwise or clockwise configuration, just in the way that the actuator is positioned with regard to the rest of the control boards. Another point is the fact that we've extended daisy chaining capabilities on the same 24 VA power supply. This helps lower costs of installations. Also, and actually one of the most noteworthy improvements is the fact that we've updated the flow sensor, and now, as you'll see, they are directly connected to the pitot barbs on the outside of the construction. So we have a much more direct, sensor readings, pressure.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Absolutely, Kevin. I mean, that definitely means that it's far more accurate. But what I really like about the flow sensor is the fact that we no longer have to worry about where high and low is connected, in that the sensor is auto-sensing. So that will greatly eliminate, the situations where we get mix-ups in the field and we accidentally attach the wrong pitot tube to the wrong port. So fantastic job there, Kevin.
Yeah, that's a great point. And back to the overall construction, another thing you'll notice is the fact that the mounting bracket over here is quite different from that of the ECB or ECL Series VAVs that you'll remember them to be. Much more robust. The anchoring point is also now out of aluminum and not plastic like it used to be. So you guys won't be experiencing any cracking or have that risk anymore when trying to install VAV on your jobs. Another thing that we've made out of metal and that is much more robust than it used to be, again taken from your feedback, is the fact that the pitot barbs are now actually made out of aluminum. I think this is a very unique feature and adds a lot of robustness to the design. So no more worrying about cracking these pitot barbs off when installing the pressure tubing. Anything to add, Ryan?
No, I think again this is the perfect example of voice of the customer, right? We've heard your feedback over the years, and what you see here is the true culmination of all of that feedback.
Yeah, and another thing that came from feedback is the fact that installing the wiring on the connectors used to be a bit of a pain because of the kind of flimsiness of the old connectors or the connectors on the current VAVs. So what we've gone ahead is to include a much more robust and durable connector that, with its rising cage characteristic, is now a bit easier to connect your wiring and can easily be plugged out and plugged back in short delay during installations.
Absolutely, Kevin. I really like these new connectors. They pop out quite easily, so very simple to do service and maintenance on the VAV controller without having to change your wiring. And at the same time, for those dark ceiling spaces, they are color-coded. So again, a great improvement to ensure that we're wiring the connectors properly. On top of that, on the top right corner of the VAV, we also have a strain relief where we could actually tie wrap our wiring harness to the actual controller.
Yeah, great point, Ryan. So that covers the construction of the overall VAV package. More specifically now, if we go into the individual models, there are other features that are worth highlighting. We did mention the revised 24 VA power supply that allowed for an increased daisy chaining capability. That's
right.
For ECB and the ECL-VAVS.
So, Kevin, I'm going to challenge you there for a moment. So let's say I was using a Class 200 VA transformer and about 500 feet of wire. How many VAVs could I daisy chain now?
So what you'll notice now if you go through the documentation, I'm talking specifically about the install guide for the new VAVs, is that we've put out a very interesting chart that can help you answer this sort of question when planning out your job. So in Ryan's example, if you consider the fact that you'd have 18 gauge wiring and we had a standard VAV for a cooling only application, and that we had a total of 500 feet of wiring, this would amount to about 12 VAVs on the same 24 VA chain. This actually comes out to a little more than double what we used to be able to do with the older VAV controller. So quite an important difference here, and this could allow for some cost savings on projects. One thing to note of as well with the backnet versions of VAV, so this actually includes both the VAV, the ECB-VAV and the ECB-VAVS, is the fact that they can now be ordered with built-in preloaded applications, and these are either in imperial or metric units. So this along with the preloaded applications, which we'll touch on a bit later, will really improve on your help improve on job site configurations. Now, lastly but not least, specifically for the ECB-VAVS and the ECL-VAVS, both of these models have one extra input and one extra output over the previous generation controller. So another interesting feature that we've added to this controller. So basically, to identify what models we're releasing, we've listed them here below. There are 6 models, 6 new VAV models that we're releasing this June. The four backnet ones that I mentioned before being ordered in either metric or imperial units, so that's both for the VAV and the VAVS. It's important to take note of the -10 extension to these new product numbers and how it's different from the -01 or -00 on the current backnet VAVs. So this will be important to notice, to take note of when placing your orders.
Yeah, so Kevin, if I can step in here for a moment, this is a very simple change for those of you who are using estimating tools or estimating software. Very simple for you to go in and modify your part numbers and simply add the -10 to the model number, and that way you can ensure to be proactive and start ordering the new VAV form factor from the get-go. So I really urge you guys to go in and modify your estimating tool sets to do that right away.
Yes, and another point to make, and regarding the part numbers as well, is the fact that the ECL-VAV and the ECL-VAVS also have this change. But you will notice that it is not available in both SI or imperial units. This is because the preloaded applications built in allow you to do this unit conversion directly on the page in the viewer mode. So the benefit is still there with these controllers. So availability of these new controllers, we did our initial release to sales on the 6th of April. This was our initial announcement of the VAV availability being this June, and the fact that we are willing to take pre-orders on this product. We're now in that period of pre-orders on the new VAV, and we're slowly transitioning to the new product, which will be launched on the 20th of June. So we're officially shipping the new VAV on the 20th of June. Important to note that there is possibility, and we'll stress on this a bit later as well, there's possibility to have early shipments on the VAV if your projects fall before the date and you'd like to take advantage of the new controllers. So we'll get into that a bit later. Also related to this, also related to the launch is the phase out of the older VAV controllers, and we're going to also touch on that a bit later in the presentation. Before I move on to the configuration assistant, Ryan, is there anything else you wanted to add?
The one thing I will add is, the immediate knee-jerk reaction is, if I have an existing controller in the field, and for any reason if it fails, that I need to RMA it for the exact same model, and that's not necessarily true. You can immediately migrate to the new form factor. So I really want you to keep that in mind moving forward.
Yeah, that's a good point, and we'll elaborate on that a little bit later in the presentation when we talk about the phase-outs. So, EC-gfxProgram Configuration Assistant. The Configuration Assistant is one aspect of our block programming software that we did release in the fall. It's quite a powerful overlay on top of the block programming interface that you guys are probably used to. And what I think this new VAV is going to help to do is show you really the benefit of the customizable configuration pages in the fact that it comes out of the factory with preloaded applications, making full use of the configuration assistant. So a great feature, and with the new controller you really get to see what can be done with these by looking through these preloaded applications, and we'll get to this in a minute.
So Kevin, hang on a sec. just for a point of clarity, and I'm probably going to date myself here, but for those of you who remember using the old EC-VAVS or ECC-VAV line of controllers, they were application specific. And so there's a point here of being able to use the configuration assistant tool to create that application specific look and feel to a fully programmable controller.
Yes, exactly, and that's why we we can say now that the configuration assistant allows us to really render a programmable controller configurable, making it somewhat of a hybrid when it leaves the factory. And again, the preloaded application leaves the factory residing in the controller, but any customization can be done on top of it. It's not locked in any way. So we have that configurability from the older controllers that some of you may be familiar with, but it can be customized in any way possible. And the other great feature is the fact that it can be launched from either the ECNet platform or the LNS platforms. So a lot of flexibility added there. And we're going to get into the preloaded applications, but before that, it's also important to note that now these applications that used to be able to be configured through the EC Smart View and through the productivity enhancing tools in ECNet can now be done as well through EC-gfx and the configuration assistant. So you really have three different ways that you can configure controllers depending on what your needs are. So just to highlight a couple of features with the configuration assistant, and then we're going to get into a short little demo to show you around what the preloaded applications look like in the configuration in EC-gfx. So basically, with the configuration assistant, you can define whichever variable you want to be configured or modified from a configuration page. You can build your pages in any way you desire for your application, and if there's any pages that may be specific for commissioning or installation but are not needed to be viewed in the field, these pages can also be password protected, or even more importantly, any code that may be proprietary or kind of custom that needs to be protected or maybe just yeah, maybe just protected because it's not necessary beyond the certain phase of a project. That can be password protected. And then you can customize your interface for your commissioning process and personalize it for any specific customer. So all of these key features that are really within the designer of the configuration assistant can help to save time and add flexibility to your installations.
Kevin, that all sounds fantastic, but I think we'll stick to the old adage where they say a picture says 1,000 words. So let's shift gears now and go right into the demo.
Sure. So let me just change screens here. I have it loaded on another monitor. Here you go. So basically, this is over here is your overview page of what the preloaded application, preloaded application for an ECL-VAV would look like. So your overview page is, again, as it says, just your overview of what's happening. You have your space temperature, you have your flow status, flow set point, HVAC parameters, CO2 readings and set points. On this page as well, it's important to notice that in the toolbar on the top, it's reduced when compared to what you see within EC-gfx, and it keeps it plain and simple right down to what you may need most of the time once your program is already put together. Here, like we said before, with the ECL-VAV, changing the units, that can be done directly from here. And then as you can see, my flow rates changed to CFM, temperature changed to degree F, and this is basically all the viewing parameters in the configuration assistant here are changed to imperial at the click of a button. Also, you can save your configuration to the device, whether you want it to just be hardware configuration, HVAC configuration, or so on. From these checkboxes here, you can save it to the device, and then from that point on, your device is set. We also have hardware configuration. This will go through your inputs, where you can go ahead and assign them to whatever you need, such as discharge temp or occupancy detection, and so on. You can select your sensor type that you're using on the installation and some other parameters. Outputs as well that can be configured to whatever type of application you have. It's all down there, and this covers most applications in the drop-down menus. Box configuration, you can select right away if you want it to, if it's a single duct, series fan, parallel fan. That's all listed here, and your box code will be modified or can be modified directly if connected to a VAV. I can select if it's dual flow, your heating stages, that all can be done from here, and VVT mode, if I have it, I can put it there, as well as hot water reheat. Lastly, on this page would be in your room sensors. If for any reason you want to restrict access from the smart view in the space, then you can do that from here and just basically tell it that you want it to do set point and balancing configuration and nothing else, or if you want it to be set point only or have no access at all and have it fully password protected. So those are all very cool features that you can do right from here. It's all built in. Every VAV controller leaving the factory will have this already built into it. HVAC control as well. This you can get into a little more detail and to help you through your commissioning process. You can set your unoccupied heat set point and standby heat set point and so on. That can all be done from here in the set points configuration section. And a few other things as well. And then we get into the airflow section, and here you can do, this will actually facilitate the balancing process, where if I have the K factor from the VAV box manufacturer, I can set it here. I can set my flow calibration values. This can be done simultaneously while taking measurements in the space after everything has been installed. Quickly set to the min flow set point, max flow set point, and so on. Everything is here. And finally, output assignments. If this will tell you, depending on your application, what's recommended to connect the specific outputs on the device itself. So covers pretty much all applications, and again, this is the preloaded application in the VAV. If it doesn't suit your particular application for any reason, you can get right into EC-gfx here. Sorry, it just popped to my other screen, but it'll get right into the code. And this is again is the code for the preloaded application, and you go into the configuration assistant page, and you'll see that this is basically the designer mode of that configuration page that we went through just before. And as you'll notice here, actually, the fact that it's highlighted in orange, this is another parameter that if I went into my properties here and I click on the discharge air temperature, it'll tell me I can customize the background color, and if I really want to get into something detailed, I can actually program it to flash orange or flash red if I have an alarm or anything that may need immediate attention on site. So these are all things that are customizable. I can also add to this menu here if I have a specific commissioning process that I like to go through every single time. I can add a tab right here, new menu item, and then I can organize it by tabs, and then add elements within the configuration variable selector that I want to be able to configure on that particular page. So all of that can be customized right here. Then you'd return to the viewer mode, and at first launch up of EC-gfxProgram, all of your changes, all of your customizations here would be added to the viewer mode according to whatever need you may have. So that pretty much covers the configuration assistant. There's no need, I think, to go into more detail than that. Ryan, was there anything else you wanted to add to this?
No, I think you did a fantastic job, Kevin. This is an extremely powerful tool. Really makes using the pre-engineered applications that much easier. And for those of you who want to create something repeatable and simple for your end user clients to manage this, this is a perfect interface to be able to do that.
Yeah, and of course, any other detailed explanations of how to do a specific binding of a parameter within your code to a configuration variable, that is all explained within our EC-gfxProgram user guide, and it should be pretty straightforward. So I'll minimize this. We'll continue with the PowerPoint. Again, if you guys have any questions regarding what we're talking about, please write them out or ask them in the chat, and we'll get to them later. So lastly, regarding the VAV, we have the fact that, and this is good news, that there is no pricing change with these products. So all four of these hardware examples shown here, the ECB-VAV, ECL-VAV, and the VAVS models as well, have no change to their previous version. So all those great features that we've added, the much more robust construction that we went over before is still within the same price bracket, so will not affect your projects in any way by transitioning earlier. And again, we did mention before, and we'll mention again, early access for these new VAV controllers is available, and we encourage that you start investigating on your projects if they can be transitioned earlier, because this will help quite a bit. So contact your RSM with that. It could help you a little bit again, because we're going to get into the VAV retirement in the next section, which could affect some of your projects.
Absolutely. I think that's fantastic, Kevin. I mean, to be able to take advantage of all of these new features and benefits at no cost increase, I think that's fantastic. Help us be more competitive. And at the same time, really simple to change your estimating tools and software now. You don't have to muddle over pricing changes. You just got to modify your part number to add that -10. And so if you guys have any current projects that you're able to pull and convert over to the new VAV form factor, please do contact your RSM at the earliest possible convenience.
Yep, that's great. And I guess thanks to our engineering team, really, I think these are great products, and I think you guys should be excited about them because they are something else. So we're going to jump to the VAV retirement. I'm sure you've all been curious to know what is happening now that these new VAVs have added themselves to the mix of VAV series that have been existent for years and years at Distech. And also probably curious to know why we're doing this phase out, apart from all the great benefits that we've talked about regarding pertaining to the new VAV. We are experiencing a discontinuation of the actuator and driving chip of all of these VAV products. So that has kind of driven this project, and it does limit the quantity of VAVs that we have left. So this is why early transitions would be encouraged in this situation to kind of help you in planning your projects ahead of time, and so that there's no hiccups or anything that happens last minute when there could possibly be no VAV left for your project. So we went over the ECB, ECL-VAV series redesign. So with this, with the discontinuation that we've been dealing with, we've integrated a new actuator, new common form factor, a new level of familiarity with all our products now that will be offered as of June, because you'll see a very similar form factor to the ECY-VAV, and we'll do a little bit of a cleanup of what's been existing over the past 10 years in these series of controllers. So we've talked about the benefits of the configuration assistant and the preloaded applications, and how now with this software enhancement to the product, we really can offer that flexibility to a programmable controller to meet the needs of a configurable or meet the needs of the applications that a typical ECC-VAV configurable controller would typically have done. So this basically is addressing the overlap in the product offering that we now have, and we're just trying to simplify our offering to you guys and simplify your selection process when you're planning out your projects. So basically, to get into a little more detail, we are, in the phase-out plan, going to be including all the ECL-VAV controllers, the ECB ones as well. The configurable ones that are touched are the ECC-VAV series that some of you may be familiar with. While these are all going to be becoming legacy products, we are also taking the opportunity to do a cleanup of the legacy list and take all these ECP-VAV controllers and do a final discontinuation of these. So this will all take effect this June. So to get into a little more details, basically, each of these series of controllers, each of these VAV series, has a variation, being the VAV-SO, the VVTS, the S, the VAV, and the BACnet series has the UKL version. Since all of these have an actuator and we have limited quantity of actuators, they are all going to be affected and all going to be products moving to legacy. What is not affected and still going to be available in the standard price list with no effect today will be the 103 controller and the VAV-N. So both of these will still be available. They are not affected by the urgency to phase out products because of the actuator shortage. or discontinuation, I should say. And so those will be active for some time, but in the future, because now these will be the only ones with this sort of form factor shared with these VAVs, will eventually have replacements, but for the time being, we don't have that urgency. And some important dates to take note of. On the 20th of June, along with the launch of the new VAV, we will be moving the ECB, ECL, and ECC Series VAVs to legacy. The ECP-VAV series will be discontinued at that time. And for a year, we will be holding some stock or whatever is available, and important to take note of limited availability, because we will try to prioritize RMAs and replacements with these older products. So your last time buy date would be the 20th of June 2018. Again, while quantities last, because it will be hard to guarantee, where all of these products will be officially discontinued and no longer available. Ryan, anything else to add?
Yeah, so I just go back to my earlier point. You know, the knee-jerk reaction, right? If we have an ECL-VAV, let's say, that fails in the field for whatever reason, and we need to RMA it, that we need to replace it with an ECL-VAV controller. And that is simply not the case. We can actually use the new -10 form factor model to replace that. So I just want you guys to get out of the habit of that knee-jerk reaction to always look to want to replace it with the exact same form factor. And we got some great documentation around how to select the right model, and Kevin will walk us through that here shortly.
Yeah, that's a good cue, Ryan, because the next slide we have is what's actually quite new, and because this is quite a significant phase-out project that we're undertaking, we are releasing VAV replacement guides. If I just click on this link here, I'll open the document and show you what it's like. This document and all phase-out document will be available tomorrow on SmartSource. There will be a comm going out. And so take note of that and look out for that tomorrow. And basically, so what we have here is a VAV replacement guide. We have a nice table of contents here that shows that we've really considered almost every case, every scenario of an old VAV controller that may stop working, and you either have to process an RMA or do a replacement or something in that regard. This will guide you step by step to doing that replacement. So it kind of makes it a bit easier to manage, you know, knowing the fact that you have this guide available to you. Here, for example, for the ECB-VAV, we list in the table what products have been phased out and what their replacements are. So you have all that information there to provide customer service with for ordering. A little overview to the sort of phase out and the replacement procedures, some important notes to take note of. And then we go through a step-by-step guide of each scenario. So in this case, you see at the beginning there are some notes that are worthy of kind of looking over before going through the process, because, for example, the new ECB-VAV would require a minimum version of ECnet being 3.5. And then we recommend that you upgrade to the latest support pack, and as well as the latest version of EC-gfx. So in each case, this is outlined. And then we go through the step-by-step procedure of that replacement, what's recommended, a recommended process to go through. If we get into the ECL-VAV series, which has a bit more options here, we provided hyperlinks in this case, so that in the example where you have maybe an ECL-VAV without integrated room control, so and if you have to replace this controller in your job site, then we have all of these screenshots here that will guide you to the process of replacing it in LNS. Give you some important requirements at the beginning, kind of takes you through the step-by-step guide, like I said before. So it'll cover pretty much every scenario and should be quite helpful. Apart from the phase-out or the replacement guide, we also have another new document that you'll also find in SmartSource in the phase-out section of these controllers that we're discussing. A product phase-out notification document that kind of brings everything into a nutshell and puts all information in an organized way in the same place regarding the phase-out of that particular controller. So basically, you'll search for the series that is affected, and then it will tell you what its phase-out date is, what kind of increase is associated to that phase-out, when the last time buy date is, what kind of information is important to take note of for servicing and regarding availability of products, or what's recommended for the replacement. We have replacement charts that take you through product number by product number in this phase-out plan and their direct or indirect replacement that's recommended with some important notes. We have as well related products that are affected. Obviously, if you take the example of the ECC Series, the older EC Smart Sensor VAV is affected because it was made to work hand in hand with this VAV controller. So this as well will be moved to legacy. Supporting documentation, we went over that, so it's going to list you what document will help you and guide you through this replacement process. It's going to list you again the minimum requirements for your software, your supporting software and tools, and then the date that we release this phase-out. So that, I think, is also quite helpful. And in terms of pricing, on the 20th of June, when these products move to the legacy section of the price list, they will also carry a 25% increase in doing this. So this is mainly or basically the ECB-VAV, ECL-VAV, ECC-VAV series controllers. The ECP-VAV series controllers will be officially discontinued on this date. So we do recommend to plan ahead, benefit from early availability of the new VAV controllers, and start to plan ahead again for your projects to make sure that you use the new VAV controllers as much as possible. Ryan, did you have anything else to?
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. If I can add here that the team's done a fantastic job. They spent a lot of effort in putting this comprehensive documentation together. I don't think there is a scenario that exists that hasn't been covered. So if the answer is not found in the documentation, please do not hesitate to reach out to your regional sales manager or even your local sales support engineer that can help you walk through the process and make sure you select the correct replacement products.
So lastly, regarding the VAV retirement, we are putting together some frequently asked questions. I'm sure you may have quite a few questions regarding specific scenarios, so we'll do our best to put the most commonly asked questions and put them all together in one document and make them available by June 20th. Most likely these will be added to the replacement guides at the end in an appendix, so look out for that. And basically, we'll try to cover questions like, what if I have a failed product after the last time buy date and my product is still under warranty? So in this case, either we do still have VAVs remaining and we can do that RMA for you, or we're going to hold to the warranty and give you a new ECL or ECB-VAV as a replacement at no extra cost. So as you can see, these new controllers really can pretty much in every case be a direct replacement and benefit from the software tools that kind of make this a much more easier replacement for your application. So I think this does cover most scenarios and kind of mitigate a lot of the risks that may happen if anything does break and you're forced to upgrade to the newer VAVs. So we'll have that available to you as well. So again, there is a last section to this presentation. This shouldn't take more than 5 minutes, and basically, apart from the VAV, we are going to be retiring and phasing out some other controllers. Again, this is due to an overlap in our product offering, and we're just trying to simplify your selection process when planning out your project. So with the success of the ECB, ECL, and ECY series controllers, we're really trying to streamline our offering and make use of our software tools such as EC-gfxProgram and the configuration assistant piece of it that can really add some configurations to controllers that typically were ordered that way. So what exactly are we phasing out in this section? Basically what we're touching here are the ECC Remote I/O series and the SCC series controllers, namely the ECRTUL, UVL, HPUL, and FCUL terminal unit controllers. So all of those will be moving to legacy. All of the older ECP series controllers that are already in legacy will be discontinued officially this June. So just like with the VAV, we will be doing the same for the ECP series controllers that have been around for quite some time. So again, just like with the VAV, important dates to take note of: 20th of June 2017, in a couple months, we'll be moving these two series to legacy and discontinuing the ECP series controllers. For the following year after that, there will be a limited availability for RMAs and replacements. We're establishing a similar last time buy date being the June 20th in 2018. So again, this is while quantities last, so these are not as popular as the VAV controllers, but in the case that you are planning out a project, you can benefit from our phase-out documentation to steer you in the right direction for replacement products that will be available beyond the June 20th date. So again, just like with the VAV, we are going to be releasing and making available tomorrow in SmartSource a replacement guide for all these other controllers. And in the same way, we have this guide here that will outline all your possible scenarios. I think, for example, here with the ECP series controllers, each of them has pretty much a direct replacement in taking a product from the ECL line, so the CDIL product numbers. And in the same way with the VAV, we go through a little overview of what may be some important things to take note of, and there are hyperlinks to get you right to the procedure that is specific to your scenario. So replacing an ECP series controller in ECNet, you can click right here and it'll take me right to the procedure that really can help me through my process. And as well, we also have this phase-out documentation for these phase-out controllers. Very plain and simple with the replacement tables and any other information that may be necessary to take note of when considering a replacement or even when planning out a project. I think a lot of useful information could be here if you've typically been ordering an ECP series controller or ECC or SCC series controller and are forced to go with the replacement. So just like with the VAV, these controllers going to legacy will experience a 25% price increase. They will be moved to the legacy section of the price list, and the ECP series controllers will be officially discontinued on this date. And so that's basically it. This is basically the summary of what we discussed today. The redesigned VAV does have quite a bit of enhanced features over the older VAV, and we're still offering it at the same price. The preloaded applications and configuration pages that are built into these new VAVs really do make use and add flexibility to the VAVs, make them flexible to most applications. And It's important to, again, stress on the fact that early availability is possible. So if you can plan out your project ahead of time, if it happens to fall before the 20th of June and you need to order these controllers sooner, then you can do so and contact your RSM for that information. All product retirements will be taking place on the 20th of June as well. Anything going to legacy will have that 25% price increase, and we do have documentation available that goes through all these replacement procedures that may be required. And again, limited availability during transition, so please take note of that. Anything to add, Ryan?
No, Kevin, I think you've done a fantastic job here. Very straightforward, and we've got some fantastic documentation that the channel can leverage. I think now is a great opportune moment to move to Q&A, and we'll open the floor so people can ask any questions that they may have to myself and Kevin. Please do use the chat panel located in the main Webex window, and we'll address those questions here shortly. Thank you all for your time today.
There are a couple questions, Ryan, that I see right now in the chat. One was asking about the actuators being Belimo. That is correct. So the actuator is a Belimo product. The old one was, and the new one is. And it's the chip as well that was being discontinued from Belimo that was causing a bit this transition.
Not to worry, folks, but we continue to have that direct actuator position feedback. So using the latest and greatest in Belimo actuation technology, we do know where that actuator is at all times in real time. It's not a guesstimate based on the lifetime.
Yeah, and we stress the fact that there are limited quantities, but we do have enough quantity of VAV actuators to cover the usual demand. So I wouldn't be so alarmed regarding the phase out. We have timed everything correctly to kind of give you that gradual transition towards the new product. So I wouldn't be alarmed with that. So nothing to worry. A couple more questions. Will the PowerPoint be available? Yes, it will. We'll post that on SmartSource. Dual duct controllers, will spec be making them? That's a good question, but I think typically what we've had was the VAV supporting dual duct applications. If we had if you were using two VAVs on the same project.
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. I mean, we got a couple of different options here. We can use a single VAV controller and use an external actuator and flow sensor for the other deck, and essentially have one program to manage and control within that VAV controller. Or you can have two separate VAVs, one placed on each deck, the hot deck and the cold deck, and then you can map your network variables or backnet objects to communicate between the two boxes to achieve dual duct control.
That's a good question. Thanks for the added info, Ryan. We'll wait a couple more minutes. If there's any other questions, we'll be here to answer them. In the meantime, thank you very much for your time. I hope it's been useful.
All right. Well, we've come up to the top of the hour, and I don't see any further questions here. So I'd like to thank everyone for their time today. Thank you for joining us for the presentation, and please do stay tuned for us to post this material in the SmartSource. You can review it at a later date. Also note that if you have any colleagues who were not able to attend the WebEx, there is one last session designed for our international markets at 9 p.m. Eastern today as well. Thank you all for your participation. Have a great day.